Welcome back, guys. It's the Esports Weekly for Week 7 of the SPL. Adanas joined by F. and Hinduman once again, where we discuss the games of the week for the SPL, both North American and Europe. And this is actually, Week 7 is actually the return of Free FP Week, Graham.
It's not.
Back in Week 3, that was the original Free FP Week.
Right now, it is not Free FP Week.
Really?
This week.
This is like the week that we all agreed how the games were going to go. This is actually the week where we were all like, okay, yeah, it's going to be Free FP Week again.
That was then. This is now.
Are you a changed man?
Just for this week. This week is not Free FP Week. I have a feeling in my bones.
You even said that if Fnatic won a game, you would keep Free FP Week alive.
I would, but I can't under the situation of these games.
I have a text from you today saying
not Free FP Week.
Hey, F. This is Free FP Week.
I believe it. I didn't get that one, but
it says it right there on the text.
Can we get updates?
I'm saying it now. It's not Free FP Week.
All right, guys. Heading into Week 7, we've had we've had a lot of roster changes, so it's going to be interesting to see really who remains at the top, though. Speaking of the top players, Alpha Draft top performers, if you guys want to go and sign up and have your chance to win real money, this graph is going to give you kind of a good look at which players you should be looking out for. I think the top is adapting. I think it's like AFK and Epsilon really holding the top 5 spots.
Epsilon, AFK, yeah. The best 2 teams to go for so far this split. What's the record for one of them? 14-1, and the other one's 15-1.
Yeah, AFK taking 2 losses, and Epsilon, like you said, finding
so we're still the best region. EU is still the best region.
Every single time.
It's still the best region.
Anybody that plays Chalk winds up on my daily fantasy.
Everybody will be playing Chalk after that patch, boys and girls.
All right, guys, let's take a look at the top of North America, though. AFK taking their second loss to Cognitive Gaming. Right behind them, though, Team Eager sitting at 12-6, really establishing themselves as a dominant North American team.
Yeah, for a couple of splits, Eager sort of sit in the middle and giving a lot of people some questions, but I think their performance in this split, Cognitive Invitational included, almost especially included, Team Eager has answered a lot of those questions with a, why were you even asking?
Let's be honest, for me, I mean, with Eager in the whole season so far, I expected them to be middle of the road, vie for that 4th spot at the start of the season, but this addition of Omega to the solo lane has really helped them out a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And they've managed to get the coordination together so nicely. That LAN helped them even more just to boost things even further.
We're going to take a look at the top European teams as well. And just like AFK, we actually saw Epsilon be handed their first loss as well. Or excuse me, another loss. And they lost to Fnatic, to be fair, though. Exactly.
And that's what I said last week, was that Epsilon is a team that's going to go undefeated unless the number 2 team, Fnatic, can take one off of them. And, you know, that's what we saw. For what it's worth, I predicted Epsilon will keep going forward. I think that their loss was less a story about their fall from grace and more of a reality check. Fnatic is very, very strong. You're going to get
Epsilon
a loss.
are human.
Well, exactly, right?
2nd through 6th there on that list as well. There's only 2 games in it between top and bottom of that list.
For me, I'm
from
looking at
Dignitas all the way to Fnatic. It's crazy. Like, any one of those could like switch it all the way up to number 2 in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking at Dignitas, too. They're actually on a 6-game win streak, and their first match of the week is actually going to be against Epsilon. That's how we're going to intro. And, you know, I'm looking at this matchup. Epsilon, they're the clear favorites, but I'm really surprised and happy with how Dignitas has seemed to risen to the challenge. There's 6 teams now coming from each region for the Super Regionals.
I mean, if you look back at our past episodes all season, I'm not just talking this split, all season, I am the guy saying, well, rip Dignitas, rip Dignitas. In these past 6 weeks, I've completely turned around. I mean, this team has done by themselves. They've done the work. They've come back up, and I'm so impressed. It's so cool. You get to listen to the guys in the post-game interviews, how refreshed they sound. They're going up against Epsilon, and that's just one of the most unfortunate things you can ask for.
Got to agree, though. I mean, to be honest, up to week 4 of this split, I'm like, well, rip Dignitas once again. Up to week 4. Week 5, 6, however, things turned around for them. Now they're on this streak where you're like, hold on a second. Dignitas are a real deal. They're really putting on the show. Even some of the North American pros took note of it and was tweeting out about it as well. That, you know, they're like, yo, they're really not pulling any punches anymore.
A lot of it, to me, too, is Frostyak. And really, his improved performance, and I wouldn't say improved performance, I'd say consistency is really key for Frostyak. Like, he's played at this level before. However, it's like every, 1 out of every 5 games he'll have a really good game. He's had 6 in a row.
It was exactly, and it was also a long time ago. I mean, we've seen players go in slumps before, Captain Twig most notably, but that was sort of a 3-week situation where he wasn't at the top of his game. The Frostyak that we've seen in the past sort of 6 games, that's the Frostyak from Season 1. And we haven't seen that since last year, and that's exciting to see him come out and play that strong on Ratatasker, that strong on Thor. So he's a big part of their resurgence, but Epsilon at the end of the day, they get my vote for Dignitas versus Epsilon.
Credit to Dignitas and their great run they've gone on so far, but it's going to end here.
It's free FP week, so Epsilon's going to 2-0.
It's not free FP week.
Are we going to see an upset then? Are you going to switch up your pick?
That's what I'm saying. It's not free FP week.
Next up,
Maybe
though,
game,
Enemy versus Denial. Denial still struggling. You know, the announcement of the Super Regional, 6 teams in each region, we see Dig really rise up, but it really seems Denial has just continued to fall into this slump. We always talk about how they and London Conspiracy are similar, right? They're interchangeable, right? Middle of the pack teams that, you know, just barely miss land, but Denial sitting at 5-11 right now, going up against an Enemy coming off 2 fresh wins from against Elevate.
It's funny, we were talking before, Hindu and I, and you walked into that, we were talking before prepping for the show, and I said, you know, Denial is that middle of the pack team. And then I stopped. I had to look at the website and see that with their 5-11, Denial seems like they have been playing so much better than their win-loss would tell you, but they're really, unfortunately, not. So when they're going up against a team like Enemy, who succeeded very early on and haven't seen so much success since, I think that these two teams wind up being really evenly matched.
I'm just going to go with statistics for this one, because for me, Denial have not performed well this season. At the start of the season, I was like, yeah, top 4 consideration. Them and Eagle will fight for the 4th spot. Look at where they are now, 7th. 7th, and they're not in a good spot right now. For me, I'm going Eager. Sorry, I'm going Eager. I'm going Enemy. I'm still going Eager anyway.
Yeah, I'll go Eager. They're not even playing yet.
That's why it's not free FP week.
Tom and I actually went split on this. I think we're both in agreement that Denial, really, their skill level's probably slightly above their record, sitting at 7th. I think a lot of that middle of the ground North America is really close. You could trade games, and I think this is going to be one of them. Moving on to Friday, though, it's going to be Justice versus Paradigm, and I'm pretty sure we all have Paradigm for the sweep here. They've got Cubo Fred back in the jungle. As far as I know, I don't know if they're still switching it up, because last week they did have those roster switches with Cubo out.
They do, and I'm not sure if it's 100% certain whether he's going to be back this week. It was because he had school. He may still be out for this game, though, but even then, I don't think it's going to be enough to really influence this game. I still think Justice, with their roster changes too, Paradigm will come out on top.
Friday is honestly the free FP week, or free FP day.
It's not free FP week.
Another big roster change, though, or excuse me, the big roster change that we need to talk about for this week, Elevate taking on the now Divios-less Team Solo Mid, with the Boosh now registered as a starting member again. So a lot of question marks here.
I think that there's a lot of there's a lot going on in this current TSM situation. I think that, honestly, if you've been to LANs, if you've seen the team, that the writing was on the wall already. You can sort of tell that, you know, Divios wasn't really going to be there at the end of the day. That said, we do see the team sort of going back to the old form, Boosh maybe coming back in the mid, which will shift the team around a little bit. I like that team. I like that Team Solo Mid. I do think that they'll have some speed bumps to go up against, but just sort of like the Paradigm versus Justice situation, I mean, Team Solo Mid, they could replace 2 members and still beat Elevate. I don't think that Elevate's at that level where Team Solo Mid has to, I don't want to say they don't have to worry about it, because it's professional level play and you always have to worry and be prepared, but I don't think Team Solo Mid has to be too worried about Elevate.
And just to note, it is Bickham that's going to be coming in to the solo lane. And funny enough, Bickham actually used to play on the Cognitive roster we saw earlier in the year, the original Cognitive roster, and he was actually teamed up with Jigs, the support, who's now the support / coach. I believe actually he's moving back to coach. Right. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know Boosh is labeled as their mid laner, so we'll have to see what it comes down to.
For me, if Boosh goes back to mid and we see Snoopy go back to AD carry and then Ionic in the support role again, I think we'll see TSM probably push back towards winning race. I don't think that the switch around didn't work out as well as they were hoping for. That's
maybe for season 3 they switch it up again.
Yeah, maybe. But
if
like,
they qualify for Worlds, they'll have some time.
Right now, it'd be so nice for at least the TSM fans as well to go, oh, hand on heart, relief, you know, we've got some of the boys back in their roles.
I mean, they won the summer finals and then switched everything up.
That's the difference, isn't it? That's a big key. They won finals.
So during week 3, Fnatic played Dignitas, and Dignitas, you know, this was the Dignitas we kind of expected, sitting at the bottom, was actually able to upset Fnatic, found a win. They're going to be rematching off once again here. Fnatic, though, are fresh off an Epsilon game that they took, finally giving them their first loss. I don't think Fnatic are going to allow Dig to win.
That's the big key between this, is Fnatic are going to come off that game against Epsilon. Take into account the game they played against Epsilon. Game 1, they got decimated. Game 2, they decimated. If they can take that form and that fire they found in that game against Epsilon into this Dignitas game, even though Dig are good, don't think they're going to be good enough here.
Yeah, as I said before we started off the show, this is just one of the most unfortunate things when it comes down to schedule. It's basically random, right? And then you sit there and you do so fantastic, and you're on an upswing, and you're playing some of the best Smite in the world, and then you got to go against the top 2.
You don't get to make your own schedule.
Exactly. So that's going to be rough. I think Fnatic takes this 2-0.
Moving on, though, London Conspiracy taking on Epsilon. This is going to be a doubleheader for Epsilon. London Conspiracy currently sitting, even in the standings, 9-9. I think we're going to see them struggle a little bit here against Epsilon. And, you know, you keep saying it. Fnatic's really the only team that has a chance. I'd say maybe Paradigm, maybe another team can eke out a win. But
I'll give you a maybe Paradigm, and that's it.
This is a 2-0 Epsilon, I believe, across the board, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here.
This one, I think, is going to be pretty one-sided. London Conspiracy, I think, will make one game pretty close, but I think Epsilon are just going to...
Sure.
In the same regards that Fnatic is feeling really good about their win, I think Epsilon is feeling really bad, and they're going to come out swinging.
I think it's completely true. Completely true.
Next up, it's the game of the week, guys, and it's going to be Cloud9 versus Enemy. So for those who don't know, we've actually introduced a new thing here. Last week it was Fnatic versus Epsilon, and if you had voted for Fnatic versus Epsilon to be a split, you were entered for your chance to win gyms. This time, same thing. You're going to be able to check out esports.smitegame.com. I'm not entirely sure if it's up yet, but there will be voting sometime during this week. You could pick, does Cloud9 2-0, do they split, or do Enemy 2-0, and
there is an additional addition to this as well. Last week it was only 200 gems you got. Now you're going to be able to get 400 gems if you can guess it right and also get into the raffle and get drawn. 400 gems, not bad for clicking a name.
Get what?
400 gems.
Get drawn?
Get drawn out. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said drunk. I was like, well, I know it's the match
No,
of the week,
Bacchus.
but you don't have to look so crazy.
Bacchus gets drunk.
But so this is actually really interesting because when you look Cloud9 versus Enemy, it's going to be Cloud9, blue and white. But if you actually look at it and you look at how the teams have really been performing, Cloud9 have had some troubles, both in their control and out of their control. And Enemy, as we said, they did very well in the beginning of the season, and then coming forward, not so much. Well, I mean, which is the real team, which is the real story. So, like, it winds up being more interesting the deeper you look at it and the more you go into the stats. Hindu and I we're looking at the stats, and the matchups in each lane for this split wind up being pretty interesting. So don't write this one off. This is exciting.
Big key here is Cloud9's on the rise again, Enemy's on the decline. So where is the middle ground here? Who's still ahead of the other is the big point for this one.
Exactly.
That's why it's game of the week, and to be fair, you could split this. You could go Cloud9. You could even go Enemy with how performances have gone as of late. It could go either way. But Baskin.
Baskin, that's the key for me, really, is Baskin has, when these teams split earlier in the season, this was kind of like Baskin was like, it was his third week in, maybe he needed some work. He's still trying to settle down, and now he's 7 weeks in, and he's been to land. Baskin is one of the premier soul laners in the game, and his synergy right now with Ananster is on point.
He was disgusting last week in play, honestly. And take into account that when he first joined the team, MLC said they believed they found their own Cyclone Spin. Well, if he keeps performing like that, he's on his way to being the next Cyclone Spin.
I think Baskin is definitely the player to watch in this matchup. Out of all 10 players that are on the field, on the battlefield, so to speak, I think that Baskin is the guy to check out, especially with what goes on with how Enemy really plays around. Their jungle and their mid do wind up visiting the solo lane a lot, so it's going to be interesting to see how Baskin deals with big rotations.
We're ending Saturday with Eager versus Denial. Ooh. And this one, we talked about Denial struggles. I think it's going to be the same thing. Eager's on the upswing. Denial's, I don't want to say they're like on the decline. I just feel like they're kind of lost right now.
Sure.
There's a lot of close games that they cannot close out.
And Eager on the other opposite end of that. I mean, Eager's been on fire just lately, and I think that's going to continue.
I mean, Eager's just on an upswing. Kret bought a motorcycle. That's how excited this team is. I'm not even kidding. The coach bought a motorcycle. Okay, so Eager's feeling themselves right now.
He better be qualified for Worlds. Get that Worlds money.
I don't see them dropping a game to Denial here.
I mean, Eager beat TSM into roster changes. Like that's how good
Eager beat TSM
right
into roster changes and then bought their philosopher coach a motorcycle. That is an interesting.
They're Bond villains.
They're Bond villain. That's what it should be called.
Yeah, across the board, though, you can see on screen, this is going to be an Eager sweep for us. Denial, they might have a chance early game. I think that's really, if they can upset here, I think it's coming off of the early game. But we're at the point now where Eager is a top 2 team.
Exactly.
We expect them to 2-0 here and not split. Opening Sunday, though, we talked. I'm going to bring it up. This was the original free FP week. These are the same games. Last time, Dignitas able to upset Fnatic, and also Justice able to upset Titan. Now, Titan, they've got a new roster too, though.
They did. They've brought in Brotus. Comfrey has been benched by the team, announced a little bit earlier on, just before this show aired, actually. And Brotus is going to be their new solo laner. Ataraxia will be returning to the Hunter role for this team. Now, Brotus, if you don't know him, he competed in the Combine a while ago when we last did that one. Had a very good performance there. Traditionally, though, he is a mid laner. And so he's going to have to make that rotation to the solo lane. But we've seen a few people do that before.
I think that those two roles are I think those two roles are, you can expect somebody to transition from mid to solo or vice versa in a reasonable amount of time. Brodus, I remember him playing throughout the Challenger Cup. Now, I can't tell you exactly, his exact stats or his superlatives, but with the thousands of players that come in and out of the Challenger Cups, the fact that I remember his name, that's important. And he's a notable player because of that. With that said, Titan, I mean, we saw them play with Bird, and Bird wasn't the issue in the loss that they had last week, in my opinion. I think that this team will have to take time to gel. Week 3, we saw Justice take a game off of Titan. I think we're going to see a repeat of that. I think that this can be a split. I think that Justice is the bottom of the pack team that you want to see. They're capable of winning. And when Titan's in a situation like this is where Justice gets that win.
I mean, Justice, though, they're all, Sanjo's now their jungler. Zephyr's now their soul laner. They've got switch-ups, too.
Of course.
But I feel like the Titan switch-up, I think they're going to be playing better than they did last week. Not so much because Bird played bad, but because, Ataraxia is back in Hunter. He didn't really want to leave that role to begin with. It was kind of like he did it for the team. Ataraxia was fine with playing Hunter. We even saw when he first made the switch, he actually was playing Hunters in the soul lane. They were viable. Ataraxia is going to be fine. Brotes, this dude's been waiting to get his SPL shot. He's going to be playing. Maybe he plays too hard, right? Maybe Zephyr could take advantage.
To be fair, Brotus and Zephyr in that lane, those two have both played before in the solo lane. Hyperion was his former name, Zephyr, and he's played that solo lane before. For me, it'd be the jungle matchup. Repicas versus the new boy, Sanjo. How is he going to handle that? It's not going to be as easy to think.
No Hebo, please.
Junglers in rotation. Junglers and communication are very, very important. We'll see how Justice play, but I can't give it anyone other than Titan.
Same with me. It's Titan 2-0 for here.
Right.
I don't know. Oh, you know what? His Justice jersey came in, didn't it?
Did it?
Is that why you're splitting?
No, it's not there
you
yet.
You got your
Justice
Justice
package
jersey
this morning.
in?
Was that what it was?
No, it's not there yet. Lydia, please, I hope you got my address right. It hasn't come yet. But, hey, if we do split, I get you Red Bull next show.
Here, you can have it. No.
Well, that's the bet. I get your Red Bull next show if they do split.
I've got like a limited in the fridge. I'll be fine.
That's
Myrmidons versus Paradigm, though. That's going to be taking place on Sunday as well. Myrmidons, we've had some switch-ups as well. Sio no longer on the roster. Now they brought in Fails, who's kind of just...
I like Fails.
He's doing his thing. Fails doing his thing.
He's the only Englishman on the Frenchman's team now. That's the way I look at it. Like, they had Sio in the mid lane, so it was 3 Frenchmen. They brought Tins back in once again. And now Fails, well, he's got very interesting... What's the word I'm looking for? Itemization.
Okay.
That's a good description.
He's like a very interesting itemization. A lot of people in between are like, I don't know what that build was. And from the casting point of view, we don't either.
Fails, tweet at us. Tell us what's...
Maybe we'll see it work out for him. If he keeps doing this crazy shenanigans.
For me, though, this is Paradigm, right?
I do take Paradigm.
Okay.
We all do.
Yeah, I think that Myrmidons...
No faith in the French?
They never sent him a jersey.
Faith in the freebies, my friend.
Oh, my God.
Let me know. Tweet at me at f.ny if you got
Have you been prepping that all day? Faith in the freebies? I know he's been saving that all day.
That's just where it comes. It's magic, baby. It's magic.
He's been prepping that all day. I'm pretty sure, I guarantee, I haven't seen it, but I bet you have a notebook for all your like really bad puns and really bad jokes.
It's a notepad file on my desktop
file.
called Do Not Open. But seriously, I think Paradigm takes this one.
Oh, man.
Myrmidons, I like their roster, but this is sort of where Upcoming Stars was in the summer, where the moves you made on your roster will make you better. We'll see you next time, and that's what we got at Justice. They're doing better now, right? They're fun to watch. I think that's where Myrmidons is. Exactly, but they're better than they were, and that's the story. I think that Myrmidons, if they don't get relegated, if they survive, right? Perfect world, Myrmidons winds up in spring. I think that we see the team get a little better. But right now, this is Paradigm all the way.
All right. Next up, though, AFK Elevate. I believe we just make this one quick. We had a sweep across the board. Elevate, we don't believe they're going to beat a new roster switch TSM. They're not going to beat AFK unless something crazy happens.
Yeah. The sad news is
everyone gets sick.
Bottom of NA and bottom of EU, for me, those two teams are both adrift right now, and I think they're going to keep drifting. That's the story.
They're going to be drifting for a long time. We're going to close out Week 7, though, with a match that I actually find very interesting.
I love this.
Especially with the role swaps. Cognitive Gaming taking on Team Solo Mid. And we just talked about AFK, you know, sitting at the top. They have 2 losses. One of the scrim partners, Eager, which you will see losses to scrim partners. They know how to play against you. Their second, coming last week, to Cognitive.
Cognitive is a strong team, and I have sat here since day one.
Yes,
amidst the haters and the dissenters and the people that disagree. Not just you, but a lot of people just from day one. Don't forget that this squad never played a game before Week 1, Week 2, Week 3. All of a sudden, they started winning. Cognitive Invitational, Eager beat them. But do you remember that first game and the second game that almost went their way? Cognitive is the team. I think if we've got AFK and Eager as the clear number 1 and number 2s, I think that Cognitive and Cloud9 fight over 3 and 4, realistically speaking. And coming into Team Solo Mid with this roster change, I think Cog takes this.
But roll back the roster change again, because if Boosh goes back mid, Snoopy goes back to Hunter, which is supposedly what might be happening. Ionic goes back to support. We just throw in a new solo laner. Solo lane is just dance and do a merry jig for the first 30 minutes of a game. It's not going to make a big difference, and TSM should take it.
Sure.
Even though I went 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, we've got splits, right? I expect Cog to maybe, you know, up usurp and get 1 game here, but not 2-0. And, you know, Cog, I feel like they're kind of like a one-trick pony based around their Guan Yu. I stole that from his book. I stole it from his notepad. I clicked it. It said "Do not look," and I looked at it.
One-trick pony.
It was way more. It was a lot milder than I thought it was going to be.
That's a horse.
Whatever.
A pony is a small horse.
Shut up.
It's a horse.
But no, because they really play this healer, primarily Hell, and then the Guan in the jungle, and that seems to be their keystone, and that's where they found wins against Eager, against AFK, and I know right before the COG Invitational they found 2 big wins, but if that's banned out, what do they have? Like, can they win games without this strategy? Because we haven't seen them win big games, at least, without running this.
I think they can. I think that sort of the ramp-up time, or the training wheels, if you will, of that one-trick pony strategy got them to where they're at now. And now they have both the confidence and the cohesion to go ahead and play different stuff, like Ra mid and a Hercules jungle, right?
Ra or Rom?
Ra. It sounded. I thought he said Rom too.
Okay,
it's Rom. Like
secret strategies.
Don't get me wrong. The strategy they developed with the Guan and Hell is really good. But people are reading it.
Penicus, though, if they ban Guan, he's going to go Circuit. If they ban Circuit as well, he's going to go with Thor. Like, they're the 3
they found that's the thing, though. They lose in high-profile matches if he plays Thor or Circuit. Not necessarily just him, but the Guan Hell is the only thing they've been able to take big teams.
We'll see how it works out. I think that this team has a very eclectic god pool, which works out in people's favor.
I'm definitely going to Google that word.
Eclectic?
Yeah.
Just like crazy, out there.
Okay.
Weird. Not the norm, really. And we've seen success for people that do sort of embrace that stuff. And I think that COG can have the same way. So split down the middle. I expect Cognitive to win at least 1. Okay. I think they can win 2.
So the free FP week, that's not free FP week.
I never said it was free FP week this week.
You've never said that?
Even though I've picked every single team to win apart from a split at the end, it's not free FP.
Wait,
even though we all kind of agree?
Because you see, I've worked out that if I say not free FP and this becomes true, then as long as I say not free FP every week, everyone's going to love me.
Are you denying that you've ever said free FP week?
No. This is my first week I've said not free FP.
All right, good. Except for the first 2. All right, guys, we're going to take a look at the Alpha Draft top performers. We talked about Alpha Draft earlier. Now you can see really the players you should be looking at when you're drafting your team. No surprise, Adapting and Cyclone 1 and 2, and then it's just AFK and Epsilon. I mean, they are just dominating their scenes right now.
I mean, you've got the hard carries of the 2 top teams, and then you've got the rest of the 2 top teams. So really no surprise there. Alpha Draft again. I mean, this is generally what my Alpha Draft team looks like, plus anybody that plays Chalk.
I love the fact that Europeans look more tanned.
I just like Chalk, dude.
I love the fact Europeans look more tanned than Americans.
They do.
I'm quite pleased
it must be
about
something
that.
about their cameras or the pictures they take. Incon, of course, though, nabbing that final spot away from someone like Allied, right?
Yeah.
Forget Allied. All right, guys, that's going to do it. That's going to do it for the Esports Weekly. Thank you for joining us. Reminder, though, get ready for the Super Regionals, November 17th to the 22nd. And coming up next is So You Think You Can Cast with Hindu Man and DM Brandon. Have a good one.